Prints in the mud. Over the course of my career as a park ranger, I've dealt with more than my fair share of people getting roughed up by animals, whether it was because the animal was really hungry, rabid, or provoked by dumbass tourists doing exactly what they're specifically told not to do. This time was different, however. This time, it was two men who were attacked by a lone wolf. This was particularly unusual because wolves didn't live in the area where the attack allegedly happened. The police had been dispatched alongside me and my partner Lopez on the off chance it was actually a murder. When we got to the site, we saw the two men. One of them was undeniably dead. Poor son of a gun was ravagely ripped apart. His left arm had been torn off, and his chest had several rows of slashes across it. His neck had been viciously bitten, and his face was mangled beyond recognition. The other man, however, looked perfectly fine, aside from the fact that he was buck naked and covered in blood. He seemed to be completely unable to explain what happened, nor did it look like his mind was still intact. He just jabbered and babbled on and on. While the police were trying to unscrabble the poor bastard's head, me and Lopez looked for the supposed wolf's tracks. I saw the prints, sitting right in the mud. I signaled to Lopez to follow me and track them as best as I could. They went on for a while, but then I realized something unusual, something that was glaringly obvious, but Lopez and I somehow still missed. The prints were much, much larger than any wolf I'd ever seen. In addition, they were of the wolf's hind legs, but the forelegs were missing. "Hey, Chief," Lopez suddenly said. "Was this wolf walking on its hind legs or something?" Up ahead, I saw more tracks. These were human footprints. Further ahead, something even weirder. The wolf's prints walked into the human's prints. Lookout Tower 239. My name is Rick Rogers, and I am a park ranger stationed here at Lookout Tower 239 at Mount Charleston Forest and Wildlife Preserve. If you happen to come across this journal and not myself, then that means I didn't make it through my shift, and I was dragged off into the night. My shift started off like any other, slow and boring. I didn't receive my first call over the radio until about 2 hours into my shift, when I received a distress call from two campers that were camped on Rush Peak. I thought that was strange to begin with, because people aren't allowed to camp up there anymore. It's been closed off to the public since I've been a park ranger, and I've been a ranger going on 30 years now. God only knows how long it's been closed, because none of my colleagues were around the last time it was opened either. I asked what they were doing up there and got no response. They complained of hearing strange noises off in the surrounding woods near them, and said loud scratching on the outside of their tent is what woke them up. Now, the strange noises part is something I got a call about every shift, and it always was nothing. I swear people forget there are animals out in these woods, or that they're out in nature. Generally, there is going to be a sound or two that you typically don't hear in your everyday life. But that doesn't mean there's some nefarious madman or creature out there looking to kill you. But what stood out about this call was the scratching on the tent. That could turn out to be something serious. Now, there weren't bears in these woods, but it could have been a mountain lion. So I told them not to leave the tent, and I would be there as fast as I could. As they responded, though, the radio began to crackle and pop. Their voices melted into the static. It was quite eerie. I don't know how to explain it. I asked them to respond again, but it was still their eerie, static voices that responded, but this time with what I believed to be old music playing in the background. 50s music, I believe. Then the radio went silent. The connection was lost. So I hurried and gathered my things, jumped in the Jeep, and headed out in their direction. I arrived at the location about 25 minutes later. I got out of the Jeep and grabbed my rifle. I walked up the hill and saw no trace of the campers till this point. I waved the flashlight in every direction, but there was nothing. I walked a little further up the hill and finally came across an old abandoned campsite. The tent was in tatters. The backpacks were ripped apart. The clothes were strewn all over the ground. But as I looked closer, the materials, the tent, the clothing, all looked to be from a different era. If I had to pick, the 50s. And another strange thing was, even though everything looked to have been here decaying for decades, the fire pit still had some smoldering embers. I went through the backpack searching for clues. The clothing was ripped and musty. I came across some boxes of unused food, brands I've never heard of before. I checked the expiration date. My eyes widened. 1958, it read. But how could this be, I thought? An almost perfectly preserved campsite from the 50s? How was it still standing here? Where were the people who radioed me, and why didn't they see this while camping here? These were just some of the questions I had flowing through my mind. I then cordoned off the area and decided to head back to the watchtower. There was no sign of the campers, at least not the ones from this century anyway. I smirked as I thought that joke, but more questions began to gnaw at me on my way back. Like, what if that site did belong to the campers who called me? I know. Then that would open up a whole new door of paranormal questions that I did not want to get into at the moment. Also, whoever those campers were, what the hell was it that could have done all that damage? Thoughts for later, I suppose. I parked the Jeep and collected my things, then headed up the long winding stairs to the office in the lookout tower. I reported my findings to headquarters, who probably thought I was nuts after what I reported to them. Oh well, I know what I saw. I'm not crazy. I sat in my chair waiting for the next call to come, if there even would be one. This isn't the most bustling of jobs, you know. I leaned back in my chair, waiting and waiting. I fell asleep. I don't think I was out long when I was woken up by a snapping and popping from the radio. I quickly sat up and leaned forward. The crackling static was almost deafening. I pressed the speak button and said hello. Hello? Are you reading me? This is Ranger Rogers and Lookout Tower 239. Is anyone picking up this transmission? Silence is all that answered me, with that eerie static faintly in the background. Just as I was about to change frequencies, I heard a voice. It sounded faint, almost in a whimper, very hollow, very eerie. It kept saying, "Help us! Why didn't you help us? At that campsite, why didn't you help us?" I was there, damn it! There was no sign of you. I searched and I searched. Where are you? I asked urgently. It's too late. He's coming. He's almost there. The voice responded in a hollow, haunting voice. What the hell are you talking about? Who's coming? Where are you? I asked again frantically. It's too late for us. He's coming. He's even closer now. Save yourself, the ghostly voice replied. I shouted out loud, Who's coming, damn it? What are you talking about? Just then the switchboard lit up. Every frequency was busy with a call, all warning he's coming. Who were all these people, I thought? Just then I heard a thump, and then another, then another. Slowly the footsteps made their way up the stairs, getting closer and closer to the hatch. Just then the switchboard went black. All of the voices went silent, except for the one. He's here, the ghostly voice said menacingly. Then a loud, thundering knock on the door rang out and shook the foundation. Then silence, frightening, deathly silence, permeated the air. I began to tremble. Then the most frightening, ghastly voice rang out. I'm here. Won't you let me come in? Welcome to the Sheerview Cabin Lodge. These instructions are left here for your well-being. That does not mean they are a guarantee. If you have found your way here, you can be assured that it's for a reason, even if those reasons are not your own. If you did not have the intention of being here, you can be assured that something else did. Number 1. There is a vial of green liquid hanging from a cord above the bed. Do not remove it. Do not drink it. If it breaks, leave immediately and bring nothing with you. Number 2. Do not leave the cabin at night for any reason. Explore the woods surrounding the cabin in the day if you wish. Do not trust the pass or the birds. Number 3. If a cleaning lady comes to your door, do not answer. There is no cleaning lady. There never has been. Number 4. Do not use the dishwasher. Ever. Number 5. You may read the books provided. If you find one that is blank, throw it on the fire. Number 6. He is lying to you. Number 7. You may drink from the tap in the kitchen. Do not drink from the tap in the bathroom. Number 8. If you find you have not eaten for more than a day, eat, even if you are not hungry. Do not forget about eating. Number 9. Avoid red foods. Number 10. Do not drink alcohol. Number 11. Visit the lake, but do not swim. Number 12. You may meet a man down by the jetty. If he has brown eyes, get into his boat when he asks. Answer all his questions truthfully. If he has green eyes, do not get into the boat with him. Leave. Number 13. When you meet a cat, pet him twice. Pet the dog only once. Do not let either of them follow you back to the cabin. Number 14. The deer are not deer. Number 15. Avoid moving the furniture unless she tells you to. Number 16. Remember your mother's name. Do not forget it, no matter how hard they try to make you. Number 17. There is only one knife in the kitchen. It is made of iron. Do not break it. Clean after use. Number 18. If at night you hear a woman singing, douse the fire. Number 19. Do not look for lost possessions. 20. Don't bother calling the park ranger. He will not come. 21. If you are wearing a cross, rosary, or symbol of any kind, throw it on the fire. It will not help you. 22. If a young boy approaches you and tells you he is lost, point north. Do not speak to him. 23. You may find something to help you on the mountain, but don't make it back. 24. The fox knows too much. It is not always wise to listen. 25. When you leave, be sure to clean the windowsills and under the doors. Bring with you what you have left and what you have found. Leave only through the front door. Do not lock it behind you. Persevere. Think carefully. Watch and listen. Remember, you may be one of the lucky ones. We hope you enjoy your stay. This isn't an ordinary flu. It's a particularly bad flu season here. Almost everyone I know is sick. This whole predicament began when my woodsy friend pointed out something strange that happened to him while trying to enter the parks. This guy was a real outdoorsy, self-sufficient type of guy. Hunted his own meals, basically lived in the woods, etc. So he decided to drive up to Goliath Park, which had a sizable hunting ground. Upon getting to the trails, he was stopped by a park ranger, one he didn't recognize. The ranger told him the weather was bad and he'd catch a cold. The ranger was adamant he stay home. Eventually, a second ranger showed up, who was armed. This was unusual, but not unheard of in this area. This other ranger also reacted impulsively when my friend went to adjust his rifle he had slung over his shoulder. This was something you wouldn't do if you were used to being around hunters. He was insistent on the fact they were military or some security contractors wearing park ranger attire. Before being told he had to leave, he heard a rhythmic burst of gunfire from somewhere deep in the woods. They aggressively escorted him off the property. He told me that he would go back off trail and see what's going on at the ranger station. I haven't heard back. Today I started getting sick. Everyone I know is sick. My whole body aches and I don't want to do anything. It's so hard to leave my bed. This morning I woke up to get a glass of water and noticed a horrible racket outside. A huge line of vehicles were making its way through town. Construction and military vehicles carrying huge equipment I'd never seen before. Interspersed were these black SUVs. They'd pull off and stop at different houses. This whole process took about 10 minutes, and they were gone. The next morning I went to the store for some groceries. I noticed a small bright spot on the meat I'd picked up. Examining the shelf, every single one had the same spot. Upon closer inspection, they had a small hole in the plastic. I checked all of my food. Almost every product had small holes in it. I peeked into the deli area to catch a few men in hazmat suits injecting products with a large white syringe. They both looked up and saw me. When I arrived home, one of those SUVs was outside my house. I know they're going to take me. They're making us all sick. It's not a normal flu. It keeps us in bed and off the streets. It keeps us from going into the woods. It keeps us from looking outside or inspecting our food. I'm posting this before they come inside. They're surrounding my property. Don't trust the supermarkets. Check all of your food and try to wait out this flu season. The rules of Blood Creek Campgrounds. Welcome to Blood Creek Campgrounds. Please adhere to all printed rules at all times for your own safety. Number 1, do not feed the wildlife. Number 2, do not stray from the marked trails. Number 3, do not leave your cabin after dark under any circumstances. Number 4, ignore any sounds you hear from the woods that seem out of the ordinary. Number 5, In the unlikely event of the development of a fog bank, stay in place and close your eyes. Do not attempt to get back to safety, and do not open your eyes. Simply stay in place until a park ranger can reach you. Number 6. Dizziness, paranoia, extreme anxiety, and intense hallucinations are common signs of altitude sickness. Please report any campers with such symptoms to the park rangers immediately. Thank you for your cooperation, and have a wonderful time hiking the trails at Blood Creek. I let the flyer drop from my hand onto the dresser. I double-checked everything on me. My well-worn boots were tied just right, not so loose that they'd give me blisters, but not so tight that they'd cut circulation. My knife was sheathed at my side. My backpack had dried jerky and crackers enough for 3 days, and my canteens were full to the brim. I had a packet of water purifiers just in case. I mulled over taking the shotgun, a sawed-off 10-gauge, that would be hidden under my waterproof jacket. I decided against it. Guns have a way of making you feel a little too safe. I would feel secure instead of scared, and only a proper respect for the danger would let me live until the dawn. The gun would stay in my duffel bag under the bed. I heard just a whisper of mad, manic laughter on the soft mountain breeze as I dressed. I could see through the window that daylight was dying fast. I stepped out the door, maybe a half hour before the sun was due to dip behind the mountains. A rolling gray mist drifted down the slope through the trees. Fear touched me like an old lover. The laughter from the woods dissolved into hideous, inarticulate whispering. I walked off of the beaten path, away from my cabin, staring into the approaching fog all the while. My heart was vibrating in my chest as the adrenaline dumped into my system. Every instinct I had told me to run, to get out now before it was too late. I've never felt so alive. And now, as an added bonus, we have a story narrated by Beatlesfanize.
I'm a park ranger who witnessed something strange. It's Christmas Eve, and that means the holiday cheer. However, for me, that always meant work. I work at a national park, but I will not say the name for privacy. I work as a park ranger, and I always work around the holidays. Despite what my co-workers think, I don't mind the holidays. I just like the alone time. Not many park rangers work around the holidays. Most of them want to be with their families. Sure, it's extra work, but that's always fine with me. I'm telling you about this because of a strange occurrence I experienced yesterday. It was a slow day. Most people were at home celebrating. I got a call on my radio about a missing hiker. It wasn't too far from my location, so I took it. This is main base to Unit 1. We've received a call about a missing hiker. Proceed to Sector 3 and investigate and report back. Main base out. So I hopped in my Jeep and I drove over there. As I was driving, I noticed a big black lump on the path. I got out of my Jeep and walked towards it. It reeked. Unfortunately, I recognized the smell. It was a dead animal. I turned on my flashlight, and it was a deer. Its throat was slashed open, and much worse had been done to it. It appeared to be torn to pieces. I'm used to seeing dead animals, but what happened to this deer made me just want to vomit. I shivered. I grabbed some smokes from my pocket and pulled one out and lit it. It warmed my body in the frozen air. It's a bad habit I've been trying to break, but I can never seem to do it. I went back to my Jeep to call it in, and I started to pass it, and then boom! My tire exploded. I pulled over and stopped. I went out to check it, and it appeared that I ran over something sharp. I looked behind me. It looked like a sharp rock was sticking out in the middle of the road. Unfortunately, I already used my spare tire and forgot to replace it. It appeared I would be walking. The missing hiker was only about a mile away. I looked up to see the clouds slowly cover the sky and cover the moon. But then I heard a woman scream. I ran towards the shout. "Miss! Miss, where are you?" The scream became more beastie and terrified. I turned my flashlight back on and I started heading towards where the scream came from. As I'm scanning the ground, I found torn clothes, a boot. It looked like a woman's blouse and woman's shoes. Then I was walking slowly forward, and I heard a branch break behind me. I turned around to see eyes. They almost looked human. I put my flashlight on the pair of eyes, and it appeared to be a large, black, humanoid wolf. I dropped my flashlight in fear, and my brain screamed, "Run!" My legs finally began to operate, and I ran in the opposite direction from whatever the thing was. I knew whatever it was chasing me. I heard its footsteps coming closer and closer behind me, in branches and grass, being stomped and ran. I ran, praying that I could get away. I decided to head to my Jeep, but the worst thing that could happen did. I tripped and tumbled down the hill, hitting my head on a rock on the way down. And then everything was becoming a blur, and I felt whatever it was bite down on my shoulder and arms. And as of instinct, I grabbed my gun and fired off several randomly placed shots. I think I hit it. It ran off, making squealing sounds of pain. I knew I couldn't let myself pass out. I felt around my belt, and I couldn't find my flare gun. I began crawling around in pain, hoping to find it. I felt my arm and shoulder getting numb. I knew I was losing blood. I laid over on my back, facing the sky. I finally found my gun, and I was clenching it in my hand, hoping it wouldn't come back. Everything slowly went to black. I woke up shortly after, in the Ranger's Jeep. It was the new guy. I looked down, and I noticed my arm was poorly tied with a rag. He looked over at me. "You got pretty banged up. What the hell attacked you? A monster?" I responded with a chuckle. I don't remember. At that point, I zoned out. Eventually we got to the ER and they stitched me up. The next day I was at home and strange things have been happening to me. When I was trying to sleep, I couldn't get a wink. I just tossed and turned, and I was just so hungry. I went to the fridge and pulled out a raw steak and unwrapped it, and I began eating it and chewing it and swallowing it raw. I kept biting my tongue. It appears that it appears that my teeth have gotten sharper too. Well, the park manager had called later that day and told me that I could take the next few days off, but I refused. My arm feels better already, and I told him I would report to work. It's strange. I am a bit worried that I might see that thing again, and if it would be the end of my Christmas. But I have to figure out what that thing is and make sure it can't hurt anyone else. I also know what it's done to me. And if anyone has any info on this creature, please tell me. And don't go into the forest at night.
I would like to give a heartfelt thank you to the special friends of the channel. Your generosity means the world to me. If you would like to support the channel, the link is below in the description. Also, please send me your stories to duchessofdarkness27@gmail.com. You can also find me on Instagram at duchess.ofdarkness or Twitter at duchessofdarkn2. I want to thank you all for your support, your kindness, and your encouragement. I appreciate it so very much. Until next time.